Many people regard you as a personification of Ubuntu. What do you understand Ubuntu to be?
In the old days when we were young, a traveler through a country would stop at a village and he didn't have to ask for food or for water. Once he stops, the people give him food, entertain him. That is one aspect of Ubuntu, but it will have various aspects. Ubuntu does not mean that people should not enrich themselves. The question, therefore, is, are you going to do so in order to enable the community around you to be able to improve? These are the important things in life. And if one can do that, you have done something very important which will be appreciated.
This is the Open Source Report on the 28th of May, 2018. Coming to you on WBRN Radio and the Boston Red Network. As we normally do here at Cranston, we try to present this program about every 2 weeks. We've been a little bit remittent in our duties here. However, this is the May program at the end of May, but however, it is nonetheless here. We'll start out with the kernel, which we normally always start out with, at least we attempt to. So we get our grounding, as they say, the Linux kernel back to the old way of doing things here. And the latest kernel is a stable one, that is. This is 4.16.21. And we're using, let's see what we're using, 4.14.44, I believe it is. That's a long-term kernel here, and in the Slackware edition. Now, that is probably up almost to, what would it be, 4.1.43 or something of that nature. You haven't looked, but we are somewhere in that particular situation now. The Slackware people are a little bit different when they're upgrading their kernels. They do it in increments, but eventually we will get to the latest stable kernel and the rest of our libraries. Now I have a little bit to go here. I think we'll go back to had some technical difficulties here, literally technical difficulties, which we don't normally have, but occasionally we do. And this was one of the times that our workstation rebooted and all was literally lost. I'll start out as we did before here. This is from ZDNet. We were talking about Linux workstations, and this happens to be a Dell implementation of what they call their precise laptop version. This is pre-installed with Ubuntu Linux. You could install Slackware or any other Linux edition if you like, and you don't really need to use this particular laptop, but they call it a mobile workstation. They're using a Coffee Lake as one of the Intel processors, and you have an option of getting a Radeon WX graphics card or NVIDIA Quadro P600. Depending, this is what they call the sub 1,000, but in actuality, it'll cost you a little over $1,000. It comes with Ubuntu 16.4, and with you can upgrade to Windows. We wouldn't worry about doing that, but this particular processor is a Core i5 Intel processor. It doesn't have enough memory in it. Only 4 gigs of memory, 500 gig hard drive, and it's not sufficient to do what you would want to do. So thus you would be going into some upgrades here. I'm not certain as to where you would go. There are other notebooks out there, but it supports actually up to 128 gig of RAM and a 16 terabyte solid state of storage. And you can get the Quando or the AMD graphics card if you wish now, or even a 17-inch monitor. That would probably be there, but we would advise anyone looking at this, I'm not sure how many slots are there, but at least to start out with this type of setup with 16 gigabytes of RAM and 2 terabytes of storage if you can afford it. And they have some upgrade paths here, are relatively cheap for this particular product. And the only reason that we looked at this product, it was mentioned here at ZNet. We don't necessarily endorse Dell, but they do have some upgrade options, as they usually do. Additional, $75 you get 2 gigs. And this is the old Dell sort of, I want to call it switch and bait, but basically how they do it, they start with an unbelievably cheap implementation of RAM, and people are not going to go with 4 gigs. 4 gigs went out basically 5 years or more ago. And of course with the solid state drives, I can recall when they were very expensive, we were getting these smaller ones like 120s and what have you, and what would occur there, this is on just workstations and also on notebooks, we were using solid state drives to upgrade old notebooks, and it was worth it. Got at least 10-20% performance increase out of it. Put it on an old notebook. It's good with an old Celeron processor. You believe that? That particular notebook came standard with literally 1 gig of RAM. I think now it has almost, not quite, has 3 gigs. The maximum is 4 gigs, but it's doable. We use it basically downloading information on it. And we have a Slackware on there, and I believe Windows 7 or something of that nature there on a fairly small solid state drive. We use the Linux version basically, and that's just to look at web pages and a little bit of development work. We have Python on there and just a little bit of Python, not very much on that, but we would advise someone in the market for this, providing how mobile they really want to be. If they can, this is a good setup. It's under $1,000, and you could have an entire Linux and decide. There are a lot of good distributions out there, depending literally on what you want to do. Ubuntu we wouldn't necessarily recommend for developmental work. There are a number of them out there. Slackware coming to mind. They mentioned the Red Hat Enterprise, but if you didn't want to go there, you could get Fedora. There are Mint, or was it COS, I believe, or SenseOS, or whatever it is. Just a number of those that would be viable for what you would actually want to do. And while we're here, just Microsoft's desktop operation continues to be a key fixture in enterprise. This is also ZDNet and faces extinction at home. No doubt they're moving away from this. And then you offer this is Perlo. Jason Perlow. Anyway, nonetheless, a year ago argued that the Microsoft Windows operating system, as we have traditionally understood it, had an expiration date, and Redmond, the software giant, is moving forward. The death of Windows probably will happen sooner rather than later. Microsoft's architecture changed to an operating systems that were critical in order to monetize and to shed legacy components that were hampering its evolution, no doubt about that. This is on the x86 architecture, moving to a powerful SoCals such as Qualcomm's Snapdragon, which is based on an ARM architecture. Systems that run on Windows and use Qualcomm's Snapdragon 845 processor, such as the HP Envy, are already shipping, and is actually working as part of a longer transition they're doing there. Includes mobile devices that run on Android and, of course, iOS for Apple, and as well as the Internet of Things. Microsoft now recognizes its target platform for software products and services effectively anything, not just personal computers. And this is the same situation. Digital. This is from Nadella. He's the CEO there. Digital technology pervasively is getting embedded in every place, everything, every person. Bum, bum, bum. And none of this should come as a shock, as he's been doing quite a bit of organization, shuffling. This is Microsoft putting more emphasis now on high growth things like cloud and AI. They're going to launch some small, cheaper SERP type of devices. That is, they're not doing so well. That is their notebook, etc. In the home usefulness of the personal computer, which includes, of course, the Apple Mac system, is reaching its end game. There's an entirely new category of computer users who not own a personal computer, no doubt about that. And we sort of think about this particular situation. What is the Andromeda OS? Any numbers are significant to home. There have been many home, broadband Wi-Fi is on the premises, but they primarily interact with mobile devices, smartphones, tablets, etc. Out there, Echo, that is the Amazon situation there, in a larger type of devices. The OPCs, perhaps the OTPCs and Mac that were purchased years ago are now gathering a dust in the corner. It's impossible to get an accurate number of how many of those things are sitting around. The education sector they talk about there are being outfitted now with inexpensive Chromebooks based upon the Android application. Microsoft is investing huge amounts of money into their workstations that in the cloud. And the home may not use Microsoft's version of it. They also have an office here. We encourage people to get Libra software there. And the SharePoint, I haven't done much of SharePoint. Skype for business, Skype is out there. We use Skype and various other things there. And Bill Gates uses an Android device, and I think he has Outlook on it, perhaps. Has Microsoft lost its importance? All indicators are that Windows may very well be dead in the future as consumers at home, etc. There's no doubt about that. Microsoft, when they came out with Windows 10, we're giving away their operating system because Android is free, Mac OS is free if you purchase their hardware. So there you go. Windows Phone, it's official. Windows Phone 8 is dead as Microsoft turns off support for the free old OL. I didn't know they had an OS on that. Anyway, they tried to come out just as Microsoft with various things. How to get a free Windows 10 upgrade. I believe this is if you have Windows 7 or something like that. Much hype free upgrade ended in 2016. Not exactly. What was the GWX tool may be gone, but all other upgraded tools still work. End result apparently is a valid digital license, but those often will end soon. And so anyway, officially ended its giveaway program. The tool kind of disappeared out there. That was back in 2016. You can still upgrade the Windows 10 Home to Windows 10 Pro by using a product key from a previous business edition of 7.8R8. You can save, $100 on the OEM pricing to upgrade an OPC to do that. Let's see what. When I pulled the plug, this media center has been long gone. So as part of digital cleanup, I decided to run the Windows 10 upgrade from, Windows 7. Fully expected that the upgrade was complete. The system was fully activated and asked for a product key. Imagine my surprise, but I confirmed the same sequence on two different virtual machines. Here, both created from scratch. If you have a PC running a genuine copy, this is it up 7881, properly licensed and activated, you can follow the same steps to upgrade to 10, but why bother anyway? This is kind of in an age that more and more people are working on smartphones unless they are working there. And this is one of the things that you have to ask now that serious computer, what I mean by serious computer users, people that have set up dedicated servers, for instance, to watch Netflix or their digital libraries, etc., or to do any type of programming. Now, a lot of this programming obviously can be done on the notebooks / laptops, whatever you want to call them. They're much more powerful these days. Even though some of our Slackware developers run around with Apple notebooks. Of course, they do some of the development, but again, we are old school on this one. We still use Slackware, and Slackware, like Ubuntu or any of the others, can be put on any device, whether it be a mobile device, a desktop device. And one of the advantages of using Linux, if you decide to be halfway serious, even if you're a hobbyist or whatever, that you can go either workstation or server, and of course you customize your kernels and that sort of thing. This is the reason that we sort of delved in here a little bit to find out. And actually what we just read, I'm just looking at it here, was 15 hours long. Now let's get this one while we're here. This is a New Zealand rural broadband program. I've been a fan of these. The New Zealand government has announced moving up the timeline for its rural broadband initiative. Phase 2 will now be completed by the end of 2021. New Zealand access to technology, there's no doubt about that. That's according to Claire Curran. I'm not sure what they're actually doing. Priority, let's see, mobile spots, it's for tourist sites, etc. And basically, over years, won't go through what they're doing in New Zealand. broadband for 20% of New Zealand's population. The remaining 80% of the population will be covered by ultra-fast broadband project, which speeds up to 1 gigabyte using fiber. Now, more and more locations are moving to fiber. Let me just get over here. We'll go back to Krebs on this FBI, and this is from the New York Times here. Just simply, they advise people to reboot their routers to take care of this particular virus here. And this came from the FBI, and they suspect hackers. But again, when they talk about hackers, just remember that many times the hackers are not specifically located where they are. But again, just to reboot the devices by pressing the little button on the routers will, and there's evidently happening, and out there, Linksys, Netgear, and TP-Link are some of the more common varieties. I'll finish this up. This is known, incidentally, as a VPN filter out there, and Telos has an assessment tool. We'll talk a little bit more about Telos and their assessment. We'll put this on the VPN filter. In our last rendition, I actually read this. I won't do that again, but to basically tell you that this organization has been working on it and is on top of it. And in early May, we observed infected devices conducting TCP scans on port 2380 and 2888. These ports are indicative of some of the scanning that you do, and we advise people to scan their ports. These small business home devices, a lot of those out here, and what they did here was looked at in stages of how this particular virus moved around, malware I should say, I'm sorry about virus, users reboot their routers on the consumer behalf. Now that would be ISPs and those kinds of people there. And the stages, stage 1 malware infects device running firmware on Busboy, Linux, and even is compiled for several CPU architectures. The main purpose of these first step binaries is to locate a server providing a more full-featured second stage, and download and maintain persistence for the next step on the infected device. It's capable of modifying and non-volatile configuration memory that is called NV RAM and values, and add itself to this. This is a departure from previous Internet of Things malware like Maria, which is which disappears with a simple reboot. So Taucus analyzed samples from MIPS machines and 86 processes, the C2 communications, and additional malware downloads over Tor and SSL encrypted connections, which the binaries themselves are not obfuscated beyond being stripped. Some strings are stored in encrypted form, and others are decrypted at running time. The decrypted routine looks suspiciously similar to RC4 in the static analysis, but it looks like malware authors got their initialization of the S box wrong during the permutation step when the values are at XROD, but not snapid analysis of the RC4 implementation. This is more of the technical stuff. We'll put this up. You can read it. It's not available everywhere, so the reason we are posting it in these stages. And incidentally, in these routers, most of those are Linux based. We used to actually sell something that was at the time in a small platform, little workstation, little server, and later when we first started out, and later some other company went to more of an EEPROM type flash memory device, and so forth and so on. But effectively, that's what these little snippets are. They just wanted you to know where they are. And let's see. We won't spend a lot of time on the European Union, but the GDPR has come into effect. The Googles and Facebooks are now facing lawsuits. And some other sites in Europe have went dark. The Daily News, the Tribune, the LA Times, the Orlando Sentinel, the Baltimore Sun, because they are not compliant. That's according to the BBC. And a lot of them are not. And they're not compliant because they were literally obtaining information from users that they should not have been obtaining. Now, a lawyer in Australia, his name is Max Sharims, who runs NGO None of Your Business. CNN has reported, and is known as a man who shot down a safe harbor due to U.S. corporations allowing U.S. intelligence services access to European data. There are suits being in France, Germany, Belgium, and Austria. So some of the things that are happening here, and I'm not, this is from a CNN, the General Protection Regulations. Facebook is already facing suits. And again, back to Max Sharims, I think is how he pronounces his name. I actually heard him on some of the broadcasts. Now, this won't do us any good because we're not here. Let's see if anything else I missed. I don't think I did. Oh, we need to make an announcement here. The Linux Fest in Austin, Texas on July 8th and July the 9th. Again, that's in Austin, Texas. They have Kubernetes. They'll be offering some introductions to Linux, and they'll even cover some Python systems they're utilizing and analyzing using Python for scraping, etc. So there are some interesting workshops there. If you're in the area, you want to drop by. A developer's challenge here. This is a call for code, and I'll just get to the schedule. Starting on the 24th pre-registration, we'll put a link to this. And May through July, they'll have satellite events. June 18th, the coding actually starts, and all submissions must be submitted by August 31st. And then September 17th, they'll start making selections, and the global prize will be announced on the 31st of October. I kind of moved around a little bit here. Let me go back to the other one. We don't want to lose this project after we lost the last one. Krebs on security. We'll just post this up. He has his one outstanding journalist, and he just named. I think before we named some of the routers that are out here, Linksys, and some of the others. Netgear has some out here, and TP-Link device. That's the R600 VPN. Those are VPNs out there. So see some of that here, and we'll just put him in a plug and play mode. Oops. And even has a spreadsheet here, which we won't go into that. One of the beauties of redoing a broadcast is you can cut out things that you didn't want to cut. Anyway, new tool bypasses wireless router security, and this is Wi-Fi protocol setup. This is an automatic setup that you get with a lot of your Wi-Fi routers these days, where it automatically picks everything up, which is good. You can hand set it. But he does go into, this is one of his earlier ones here, and let me see. That's just a service announcement. So anyway, this is Mr. Krebs, and we'll put him on here, and let me just check on our time here. All right, we're doing pretty well here with our open source report. What we try to do is promote or propagandize around open source development, Libra software, and there are many products out there. For instance, we use Audacity, we use Libra Office. It has a whole suite of various things there, from presentation to processing. It's compatible with some of the we'll call legacy applications like Word. One of the things to note here is that all of these applications now are coming from the cloud. Now these reside, and there is even a cloud version of LibreOffice coming out also, is out actually. So there are a lot of those products are there. But since we're in more the development of business, use those. And for legal work, we actually use LibreOffice. It's very good for that. And also the Foxfire browser. And it has a container there for Facebook. And I think we brought that in the last presentation, but it's very good. It will not allow Facebook to grab information when you're not on Facebook. And that's one of the things to explore. And a list of VPNs. I had that earlier. I guess I lost it, but there are a number of... what this article concerned actually was people in other countries watching Netflix and which VPNs they could use. And there was a whole list of those VPNs. And I don't think I still have it, but the reason behind it, not necessarily to watch Netflix, but if you need a reliable VPN, this would be the direction in which you would want to go. And so we brought it up, and I think it's one of those things that we transitioned here. We probably are not going to be able to find it. It may not even be here. Yeah, I don't see it at all around here. No. Oh, one of the this has been sitting around for a little while. The White House has eliminated the cybersecurity coordinator, so they won't have one, and there's universal agreement. Of course, there should be a cybersecurity coordinator, but on the DJ Trump administration, there's no longer one. No longer has one. The job seen as the most senior cyber security role in the government was eliminated by the National Security Advisor John Bolton. So no more National Security Advisor in that particular White House. So you can sort of forget about that. I'm not certain here. Maybe it was at ZDNet I saw these this Netflix saga. Maybe not. And these VPNs. sometimes we stumble upon and we are not for whatever reason it's not around. A little thing here about Verizon using AR, artificial intelligence, to ante up on their technical training, using the glasses, I suppose, to do that. A lot of things going on out here all at once, and I think that was and maybe we totally disappeared. Anyway, we had it here, and I'm not certain where it was. This is one of the security sites. SC, we were on SC, and was about the VPNs. Anyway, you can just look that up if you do a search, Netflix VPNs, and you'll find these VPNs. The idea is not there. We'd already brought this up. Facebook could contain extension takes control of how you're being tracked. Our multi-account container extension has been a game changer for many users to help Firefox users have more control of there. And this is from Netflix. What it basically does is it makes it harder for Facebook to track your activities on other websites via third-party cookies. Rather than stop using the service, you can find vulnerabilities and miss out on those adoring photos of your, and don't miss out of your nephew and what have you. Facebook cookies, most people don't realize the idea of these third-party cookies. So that's the whole idea. Should you click on any share button on other browser tabs, it will load them within the Facebook container. So a simple way of letting people understand what containers are. And I think I was I was looking at some alternatives for social networks. That's a good thing. These are Libra, an open source project. It's called Liberty Tree. Lets people create their own social networks. Liberty Tree can be free from a commercial influence, manifestations such as behavior tracking, user profiling, advertising, and data mining. We were at a local meetup and we're talking about that. It's licensed under the GNU General Purpose license there, and you can even grab the source code Liberty Tree. It's an interesting one. Someone who was asking me about these various projects, alternatives to Facebook, were they still around? Yes, there are some. Diaspora is another one here, out here, that pushes decentralization, freedom, and privacy. And they have pods, I guess, is what Diaspora offers. So some of the things around that offer these various alternatives to there are a bunch of them here, but anyway, just a few of those we'll list up. So we at least found it. So that is kind of important. And we in the open source Libra community need to start taking a very, very serious look at alternatives to Facebook, particularly Facebook, and how we do our social media in terms of a lot of progressive people and others use Facebook as an organization tool. It is not the best tool for organization. Now, at one stage of organizing, perhaps so, but as you move to actually people on lists, just remember that the powers to be, law enforcement agencies, and now we even have commercial entities I was talking to some people that were graduating at the university in the spring and in the summer, and now many of these employers are asking for your social media account that they want to access and see what you've been doing on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and wherever else you are. And young people tend to be, and I say young people, tend to be more amenable to that. And I can recall in the late 60s and 70s, we didn't have social media, but had we had social media, we would have just basically said hell no, and passed up many of those jobs and tried to move on someplace else. And also the government at that time would have forbidden that. But now these corporations rule par excellence, no doubt about it. And this is one of the problems with privacy. At least in the EU, they have a handle on it. And thanks to the attorney in Australia, and those lawsuits are going forward, that will stop some of this flummery that's going on out here. Recall with Microsoft trying to put all their products together, and they still, if you have Skype or something, they try to slip Bing in the back door. Or if you have, I think, Windows 10 and upgrade, they'll push Bing in the back door. But the idea is decouple all of these products, and the greatest threat now is cookies. Now you can go into your browser and individually take these cookies out. But a lot of the sites, you have the blockers, we have them, don't want you there because you are blocking their cookies, but more their third-party cookies. So those are what you want to look at there. So the container is a good idea, and we just need to stay on this and try to secure our devices much more secure. All of us can do work there. This will do it for the Open Source Report on the 28th of May 2010 from WBRN Radio and on the Boston Red Network, sponsored by Cranston Inc., as it usually is. Have a good week from us. This is MA at Cranston Software.